Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, episode 114.
Surround yourself with people that are already doing it, that are like-minded.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, sharing information and stories of grass-based livestock production utilizing regenerative practices. I'm your host, Cal Hardage. You're growing more than grass. You're growing a healthier ecosystem to help your cattle thrive in their environment. You're growing your livelihood by increasing your carrying capacity and reducing your operating costs. You're growing stronger communities and a legacy to last generations. The grazing management decisions you make today impact everything from the soil beneath your feet to the community all around you. That's why the Noble Research Institute created their Essentials of Regenerative Grazing course to teach ranchers like you easy to follow techniques to quickly assess your forage production and infrastructure capacity in order to begin grazing more efficiently. Together, they can help you grow not only a healthier operation, but a legacy that lasts. Learn more on their website at noble.org/grazing. It's noble.org/grazing. On today's episode, we have Brooks and Abby Bowser of Bowser Family Farms. And they come on, they share about their journey, about what they're doing on their farm, cow-calf, finishing beef, and pork, as well as crops. For the overgrazing section, we dive into a little bit more about social media marketing. The bonus segment for our Grazing Grass Insiders is about on-the-farm store. So very interesting segment there. Excellent episode. However, before we talk to Brooks and Abby, 10 seconds about my farm. If you drive by my farm, you might say I am a good grass farmer right now. I think most farms you drive by this time of year in my area, people can say that. There's still some that's overgrazed and there's tons better I can do, but this time of year, it's always easy to think we're doing better than we are. Not to be negative, but just keep working. Do a little bit better each day. 10 seconds about the podcast. On next week's episode, we have August Horseman. He was back on episode 15, so you might want to catch that or go back and review it. We catch up with him next week. Find out what he's been up to and how things are progressing on his journey. Enough of all that. Let's talk to Brooks and Abby. Brooks and Abby, we're excited for you to be here today. Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. We're excited to be here too. This is our first podcast. We've been a listener for a few months now. Nick Rogers turned us on to it.
Yep, we're excited to be here. Can't wait to chat with you.
Wonderful. To get started, let's just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your operation.
So I'm a first-generation farmer. My grandpa gave me the opportunity to manage his small farm when I was in high school. I went to Michigan State when I got out of there, and I met Abby. Yeah, so we came back on the farm. My grandpa gave me the opportunity to run the farm for ourselves. And then, started doing everything pretty conventionally. Got on YouTube, found Gabe Brown, and the rest is history after that as far as the whole grass farming and regenerative farming journey.
And a little bit about my background. We couldn't be more opposite. I grew up on a farm. I'm a fifth-generation farmer. We had beef cattle, and we had a market garden, so we went to farmers markets and had vegetables and cut flowers, and we had a retail store on farm as well. And I did 4-H, and I've been a part of the cattle business, and when I met him, he looked like he was a farmer. I thought he was a farmer, But as we got going, it's been a very interesting experience with someone I was raised really conventional, and he's had a lot of interesting ideas about agriculture, and so the balance between that has been very fun. Yeah. But I'm completely on board now after going to the soil health academies and reading some of the books and listening to the podcasts. It all makes sense, but it took me a little bit to get here.
Oh yeah, when you've got that background of however you're doing it, it's much tougher. I think Tom Lester said that he'd rather make a farmer out of a boy off the streets of Tokyo versus a conventional farmer.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that. I'm sure I'm messing that quote up, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Someone will fix it.
Get the
Yeah.
gist.
Yeah. So let's just jump back on your side, Brooks, for a second. You got this opportunity with your grandpa's land to do some things. What prompted you to do that?
To just farm in general.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously, being a high schooler, you don't always know what you want to do, but he came to me and said, "Do you want to get serious about this?" And I said, "Absolutely." I didn't know anything about it, but it sounded pretty intriguing. So we went to Michigan State, fell in love with farming, met all kinds of friends, still friends that I have now today. Just absolutely fell in love with it.
As a kid, did you think you would be doing farming?
Not at all. My grandpa first asked me, I'm like, "What? Be a farmer?
Oh,
No
yeah.
way." My dad owned a body shop, and I thought maybe I'll learn how to paint cars. But once I started on the farm, Grandpa gave me a lot of leeway in learning some stuff. I felt like I had some ownership in the farm. Yeah, just fell in love with it. Made a lot of mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That happens. Abby, did you know
Yeah.
you were always going to come back to the farm?
I did not at all. Obviously, growing up with a market garden, we had a whole acre of vegetables and flowers, and it felt a little bit more like slavery than it should have at that time. And so I went to school, and then I ended up changing my major to ag business management, and then thought I would go the business route, sales. I had
Oh, yeah.
internships with chemical companies, so I was selling fertilizer and chemicals and for my internships. Did a lot of crop scouting, an extremely conventional world, and thought I would go that route. And then obviously choosing to stay in a small town with your fiance at the time, the job pool got a lot smaller.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I ended up taking a job as a high school ag teacher. So we did that for about 4 years, and then I started my own flower business. So I'm actually a florist and a flower farmer. And that was around the time we had kids and COVID, and we decided staying at home for me and doing my own business and working on the farm too was a better option. I turned out just like my mom, even though I didn't think that was going to
Oh,
happen.
yes.
So now I'm raising flowers and selling beef. So just like I did when I was younger.
There you go. It's these journeys, how we end up here is always very interesting, and whether or not we anticipated it or not, I find fascinating. Brooks, once you got started, you were going to school. When were you introduced to Gabe Brown, and how did that journey go?
I want to say that was probably like in 2018, 17, something like that. We were struggling on the farm financially. It was just really wasn't making financial sense. I was starting to go in debt, and I was working part-time for a guy that spread fertilizer and lime, and I listened to a podcast on YouTube, and a guy named Gabe Brown came up. So I listened to it, and just a light bulb went off. Oh my gosh, I think I can make it happen. This does make sense. Before that, I never heard the word regenerative ag. I was familiar with cover crops to some extent, and we experienced with them a little bit. Yeah, but once I heard Gabe talk, I bought his book right away. I read that. It was the first book that I've ever finished.
Oh, yeah. Very
Yeah.
good. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, I've read some sense. Wasn't much of a reader before that, and it just made total sense. And what is it? In 2019, I think we had the opportunity to go out to. Gabe was supposed to have a soil health academy in his farm. It got canceled because of the drought. We still went out there and we got a private tour of Gabe's farm. He gave us a lot of
wow.
good advice and kind of lit a fire underneath us that we really needed, and that gave us the idea that we could make it work.
At that time when you all went out there, Abby, were you on board?
I definitely was trying to be a supportive wife. I think in the beginning we were doing it together. I'm not quiet by any means, so I was very much, what if we did this? And we've been kind of doing it together since we were 20, which is crazy. So we've been trying to figure it out together. So when this whole thing came about, it was a kind of a newer movement. We didn't know anyone that was doing it. He found it on YouTube, so I was like, I'll buy in, let's do it. We made it a family vacation to go out to North Dakota, and so we were like, all right, let's do it. But after hearing Gabe, he's just so well spoken, and he obviously knows what he's doing, and obviously does all these things, and it has been successful. So it started to get more in my head. I think what really solidified it was just when he took it the next level, Brooks. We ended up actually implementing the things, and then just seeing them out of nature, that it's just been a night and day difference. There's butterflies out there. There's just these giant swarms of birds. It's just so much more enjoyable to be at the farm. And then I've taken several soil health, or not soil health, but soil biology classes in college. And so that part made sense to me. I think I was struggling with was the cattle part, where it was like, let nature deal with the health issues of the cattle. That part was hard for me to transition to.
Yeah.
You know, we don't even treat for flies anymore. We just let the birds do it. And that took a minute for me to, are you sure? Are we sure? But slowly just letting him obsess about it and research it and let him implement it. I do think it helped that I had 2 kids in 4 years. So I was like,
Not paying attention.
I'm not really paying attention.
So busy, yeah.
Yeah, so he's I'm so proud of him. He's definitely taken on all of this, and it definitely helps that he was first generation, because I think I would have been stuck in my own loop.
Yeah, very easy to do. So when you all went out to Gabe Brown's farm and you came back, what'd you implement, or what'd you do immediately?
Yeah, our biggest issue was, not maybe the biggest issue, but one of our issues was diversity in our pastures. We just took an old hayfield that we'd planted, and it was 2 species basically. So he gave us some ideas, some pulse grazing. You set up a small paddock, get some high stock density for a little while, and then you give them the rest of the paddock for the rest of the day, and then long rest periods. So after that, we started giving a lot longer rest periods. It was a 30-day rotation, and now we're pushing 45, sometimes 60, which comes with its challenges with that hayfield. Sometimes the forage can get rank on us. That's helped. Also, too, we're feeding corn, and we still are, but he gave us some ideas and pushed us to be able to raise our feeder cattle more on grass than grain. And also he said, if you quit feeding grain tomorrow, you're going to make more money. But our biggest concern, or my biggest concern, is our product, to be able to finish cattle on grass. So we're trying to go slowly into it, and we have. Every year we've cut back on grain more and more, and this year we're still going to feed grain, but it'll be a lot less.
Oh, yeah. And it's a journey, and there's so much of it that's an art. So
Yes.
taking it slow, learning as you go, reflect on what's happening. A wonderful plan there. Now, when you started working with your grandpa's land, were you just farming that, or do you have some livestock too?
Yeah, we had livestock since day one. That was what I started with. We had 20 acres
Oh, you
of
started
hay,
with
18 head of
livestock.
cows. That was the first thing that I started with. Yeah, so we had 20 acres of hay, 18 head of cattle. We direct marketed all those, but they were in a feedlot, feeding grain, which I'm very thankful that I started with a direct market business, because that seems to be a hard thing for people to get into. So I'm extremely thankful that we already had that started. Then I went to MSU for beef cattle management. It was an ag tech program, so it was just a year, but I worked on a feedlot there.
Oh, yeah.
Came back with the feedlot ideas in my mind. I went to North Dakota for an internship. They were very conventional, and also they had a cow-calf operation, but unfortunately I didn't get to work with the cows a lot there.
We got the crop bug. I feel like then we were raising our own corn, soybeans for our feed, and then we were like, everyone around us is a crop farmer, so we definitely were like, okay, we need a combine. And then it started to get very heavy crops and very conventional.
Yeah. So when I got back from North Dakota, Grandpa had a total of 350 acres. I started to farm all of it, all very conventionally. And my grandpa's big on, he's an organic guy. So we had any feed that we raised for the cattle, we would moldboard plow, disc, plant, and then cultivate. And we struggled at trying to make that work. And that's how I got introduced to cover crops, because we thought maybe that would help with some weeds and stuff.
Yeah.
And it really didn't help a lot. Maybe we didn't give enough time. I don't know. I was doing the best I could with the knowledge I had at the time to raise things organically. Right. So then obviously got in contact with Gabe and started no-tilling, using cover crops. But what comes with that, obviously, is some herbicides, too.
Right.
Which at the time we were all in on. But then I think as we got older, we started looking at it in a more financial sense, too. And we were like, okay, if we're going to make this work, we really need to perform financially. And just looking at our input costs, obviously, as all farmers do, you're like, how did this number get so big?
Yeah.
And then just trying to figure out how to get that number down is basically where it all came from in a very simple sense.
Yeah, it was extremely scary how much money we spent on the farm, especially being a small farm with that time, 25 head of cattle, 350 acres. It was scary how much money that we were spending.
Oh, yeah. So talk about, just for a moment, talk about that process when you came back from Gabe Brown's and you started implementing some different grazing practices. You were, and I believe you still are, feeding out cows using some corn and stuff, but talk about that process to go to a lower expenses.
Obviously, on the farming side, a diverse cover crop, diverse crop rotation. That was step number one on trying to cut back our inputs as far as the crops that we raise for our cattle. And then we found ourselves a lot of times in the middle of the summer feeding hay. We had a flail mower, we had green chop and feed. And one day we got done baling hay, and I grabbed about 3-4 bales and I hauled them from the hay field in to feed the cows in the middle of July. And I thought, why in the world are we doing this? At that time, I didn't have any permanent fence up around the farm, but I got my cows pretty familiar with temporary fence. On the hunt piece, we went around 3/4 of it with temporary fence, and anything that was growing, we grazed our cows on, just so I didn't have to feed harvested feed.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then obviously after that, we started getting a little more familiar with adaptive grazing and trying to get more diversity in our pastures and moving once a day, twice a day, high stock density, giving certain areas different rest periods to see what happen.
And one thing Abby mentioned earlier, butterflies, birds, and stuff. How soon did you notice a change on your pastures?
I didn't pay attention a lot because I guess to give you a little more backstory too, at the main farm we only had 15 acres of pasture for 25 to 30 head of cattle, so it wasn't obviously it was way overstocked. So we started implementing that, and then obviously putting fence up around the farm to give that pasture more rest. And I would say probably in year 2, we started to notice a big difference in just the health of the pasture. And maybe after 3 years, you start noticing birds. Even though we weren't looking before, you're like, I don't think these birds were here before.
Mm-hmm.
And now you can go out and, yeah, I would say 2 to 3 years, you started noticing just some wildlife diversity out there. And it is. You can shut down the side-by-side, and me and my oldest daughter like to climb on the roof after we move the cows to a new pasture and just look, and you see the birds, and you see some flies, the butterflies, and the neighbor next to us has honeybees, and the honeybees are everywhere over there.
Oh, yes.
And then me and my daughter really like to look for worms now. And
yes.
I would say 2 to 3 years, we started just noticing things, and then obviously it just continues to progress after that.
I think, and this is going to be my opinion, I think that's one of those things you don't really notice. You don't notice the absence of it, really. You're out there just doing what you need to do. And then when you start getting more wildlife in and stuff, it's not, oh, yeah, I saw 3 birds today or whatever. But at some point it becomes, wait, did we have this before? I don't recall all this.
Yeah. We just didn't. Regenerative agriculture, it's ultimately a shift in mindset, too.
Mm-hmm.
So
It is, yeah.
If you don't know what to look for, you didn't look for it. And
Yes.
the only thing I noticed was when I would get done cutting hay at the farm is all the bugs on my hay mower. But it
Oh,
was
yes.
mostly potato leaf hoppers. It wasn't like a vast diversity of insects and spiders and stuff.
Right.
Well, and I think the switch to regenerative agriculture is, like he said, a mindset, but you're also just paying way more attention to nature. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, you're just observing things. We have pheasants again coming out. We can constantly hear them and see them running around and flying around. And
That's probably my biggest, most proudest achievement is I'm a pheasant hunter, and we go out. My grandpa's got a place out in North Dakota. We go out there every year to pheasant hunt, and you come back home and you might see 1 or 2 a year. But over the last 2 years, we'll go out there in the spring, shut the side-by-side off, and you just hear a cackle.
Oh, yes.
The neighbors are commenting on it, and they're really excited. People driving by the farm, they'll see pheasants cross the road, and it's like, okay, we're doing something right. There's a reason why they're here.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing else around that's attracted them. It's got to be what we're doing.
On that subject, we have wild turkeys, and we have a few around, and on the lease land, it's just driving me crazy. I want to see wild turkeys over there. I've been managing a few years. I'm hoping to get closer to getting some wild turkeys in that area, and it's right on the edge of some brush. And so we get some nice edge area along with the grassy savanna-like area. I am just watching for wild turkeys all the time. I've yet to see them there, but I'm like, they're going to be back.
Yeah, we have a fair amount of wildlife in here in general. But just as far as the upland birds, they're just habitat destruction. It's the only reason they
Oh,
used to
yeah.
be here, from my knowledge, everywhere. But everybody's taking fence rows out and plowing their land in the fall.
and our whole farm,
Turtle.
there's not very many trees because it used to be cropland, so it used
Oh,
to be
yeah.
one big field, and
Oh.
so it's not. We're in the process of working with the NRCS, and we're going to be planting some trees and getting windbreaks and some habitat clusters for different birds and things. But right now, it's just a big old flat field that's
Oh, yeah.
It's got a lot of grass growing, though.
a lot of grass.
Yeah,
And cover
good, yeah.
crops.
Just for a moment, let's jump back and talk about where you're located and what the land is mainly used there for.
Okay, yeah, so southern central Michigan, we're about an hour north of the Indiana-Ohio border.
Okay.
It's corn, soybeans, wheat, a lot of woods. We've got a fair amount of woods. Small acreage fields, and an extremely big field around here is 400 acres. But most of them are 10 to 30 to 40 sections.
Oh, yeah.
Not very many cattle. It's more like a hobby farm cattle country. There's a few here and there, but as far as getting any knowledge from any cattle farmers around here, it's been pretty tough.
And I think we're like right at the edge of the corn belt, so we're like in a weird
Oh,
spot.
yeah.
A lot of conventional corn and soybeans, but we get a lot of rain, we get a lot of moisture,
Yep.
and like you said, lots of woods. So lots of farmers trying to take out fence rows and take out all these trees and stuff.
Yes. You notice I see this same thing here. People go in and they've cleared, or someone will buy a property and they'll go in, they'll clear every tree off that property. And then it's only in the fence rows. And then it may change hands again, or maybe they want to replace that fence and they take a bulldozer and go down that fence line. And now, quarter section, most land north of me is in bigger areas, south of me it's not. But now you've got this property void of trees. I'm like, wait, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they
and
didn't ask
especially,
me.
in my world with flower farming, obviously it's very close to the regenerative movement. We're constantly wanting habitat for bees and birds, and we
Oh,
want as
yeah.
much habitat as possible with our flowers so that they can pollinate and create. And so for us, I'm really into right now planting a lot of perennials and cutting from those. And with that, I would love if all the trees would have just stayed there and have been established.
yes.
And now I'm planting new trees and new bushes and new shrubs, and I've got 5 years until I see the benefit, when I know that our farm in the 60s had tons of that, and I wish they would have
Oh, yeah.
just stayed there. So it's our worlds are very similar in the farming and the flower farming, into the regenerative movement. So that's something that's been really cool to see too.
We do have one really nice oak tree.
We do have one nice tree.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really-
very good. Yeah. So talking about your cattle, and you went out there and you put up some fence. You just did temporary. Have you gone back with more permanent perimeter fencing? How are you doing your fencing?
Yeah, so we fenced the entire farm. I think it was 2022. We put up timeless post electric fence. All our interior
yes.
fences, for the most part, are temporary fence at this point. That's probably just because of indecision by me. I'm a little bit nervous to put a permanent fence up because I might not like
Right.
it. I want somebody to come down and give me some pointers on where I should put permanent fence. Saying that, we got involved with the NRCS, and in the last 2 years, we finished now. We put in 8,000 feet of water pipe and frost-free hydrants.
Oh,
So we're a little bit stuck on where some of the fences would have to go. But
oh yeah.
as far as interior fences, everything's temporary, and it really does work pretty good for us.
And talk about like your daily moves.
Yeah. So we're doing daily moves. The feeder cattle, we're not feeding grain right now. In previous years, we would feed grain from weaning all the way until finish. But over the last couple of years, we put them on pasture. We do daily moves. This year, we're doing moves twice a day, and we're not going to feed grain until the last 60 days.
Oh yeah.
And we also got Penn's Agro gate lifter or fence lifter, which I'm struggling with at this point. But from my understanding, there's a training process along with that, so we're just going to keep plugging away at it. Our cows are mostly once a day moves. Every once in a while on the weekends, I'll do some twice a day moves, try to do some high stock density and stuff.
What's our herd like? We have our cow calf.
Yeah, we
and
have
then
so
have
have our
ahead
cow
and
calf and
describe what we have going on today.
we have 2 herds. Cow
See, I
calf.
should just let Abby run this. This has been great.
So we have cow calf. We got 32 cow calf, and then we got 40 feeder cattle that we're gonna finish this year. And then I should mention, we do have a pastured pork operation too.
Oh, I didn't realize you
Yeah.
had pork as well.
Yeah, so we got in that by accident because during COVID, all these big confinement operations were euthanizing animals. And we've got a couple friends in the pork industry, and they said, hey, we got 18 pigs here we're going to euthanize. Do you want them? So we took that opportunity, which was a mess at first. We put them on pasture. They were out there with the feeder cattle. It was entertaining, and we learned a lot. We learned that they don't move or load like cows. That was probably the biggest issue
yeah.
we had with them. But overall, it was pretty successful. We sold them right away. We made some good money. Part of the reason is we got them for free, and there was demand for it, so we continued to do it after that. Last year was the first year that we would rotate them. We gave them a section every week. We had them out on pasture fully. That came with some challenges, but I think overall we went and looked at the pasture the other day that they were in, and it's recovering, and we think it made some improvements. And people seem to like the pork too.
Oh,
And
very good.
that first year they had all hernias, so they had these giant basketball-sized hernias, and that's basically why
Oh,
they were
yes.
gonna get rid of them.
They were ugly.
They were really bad. But when they got out there, it was their first time being outside, and so they were running around like they were so excited. And then by the time they went to slaughter, most of their hernias were gone, which was like
Oh,
a really
yes.
cool. that sold me on the pastured pork thing. That was like a
Oh,
really cool
yeah.
thing to see.
Yeah, it was like a rehabilitation center for them, but then we obviously slaughtered them and sold them.
They had a good end to the life, though.
Yeah, yeah. 2 things with that. First, on your cattle, are you buying feeders in to feed out for processing?
Yeah, so we had 26 calves last year. Demand is bigger than that, so we ended up buying another 17 feeder cattle. And we're tossing around the idea. I just attended a marketing and economics workshop with Understanding Ag. I came out of that with really questioning the idea whether we should have our own cows or not. They gave us some decision calculators. And Alan Williams, I'm sure you're familiar with him. I asked him, my biggest thing I want to take out of this is it worth us having our cows in rather than just buying feeders? And he laughed and he said, 90% of the time for small producers, it's not worth having your own cows. And also, we can hook you up with some good genetics. Don't believe that your genetics are superior to what's available out there. Yeah, we're really tossing the idea around. Abby's not fond of it, but is it financially worth it? And I think some years maybe it is, and most years it isn't.
I just think that the cows come with a little bit more stability, being our own market that will go right into our feeders. To me, seems a little bit more stable. Riding the market price and going and sourcing them, and that seems like a lot of stress. And then I just feel like we've worked really hard we've culled a lot. We've went through this whole journey with these cows, and maybe I'm being a little too emotional, but I think I'm not sold on the idea. Obviously, if the pencil makes sense and the financials make sense, I'll be on board. But I think the scary part is just year from year, it's going to be completely different.
Yeah. I read a book one time called How to Not Go Broke Ranching, and one of the quotes in there was, marry your wife, not your cows. And that stuck with me.
But like Abby said, that's a tough transition. I've mentioned it on the podcast before that my dad and I have this discussion with his herd, with my herd. I really have a affection for the cows. We've bred them for generations, and they're not ideal, but we think they're going in the right direction. It's hard at times to think just getting rid of that, but so much I see when you start penciling it out, just doing a stocker program to finish is much better if you have that in market. But man, I like my cows. In fact, I sold some cows last year that I'm still complaining to my wife I sold because I just like them so much, which is not a healthy attitude for a business to be ran as a profit.
No, it's a tough balance.
Yeah,
everybody loves their
definitely.
cows for sure.
I think it's like life too, the life balance. We're at a kind of a weird spot. We just opened up a retail store on farm 2 weeks ago. And so we're in the landing point of, do we jump and go full force And we get rid of the cows, we expand the feeders, we just get a ton of this going, and we're the meat people and we're the retail people. Or
Right.
do we hold on to the cows and see how it goes and wait a little bit longer? That's just a lot has been brought to our plate in the last 2 years, and so we're just trying to decide what our business plan is, what makes sense for our family,
Oh, yeah.
what makes sense financially, and
Yeah. I think the biggest question or the biggest positive if we didn't have the cows is we could have more feeder cattle and we could sell more meat.
mm-hmm.
And
Right.
the way I looked at it, there's more margin in the feeder cattle selling direct market business rather than the cow calf. It just always seems to be that way. So yeah, some years we can raise a calf cheaper than we can buy it. Some years we can't, but the margin for a cow calf is, I think, will always be smaller than feeder cattle stockers and then selling direct to consumer. But
Oh, yeah.
that would also, we would basically double our meat sale. We'd have to double our meat sales.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also another balance.
Right. And it's also with you having that market defined, and you're already able to market. You could, and this is me just off the cuff, you could grow that feeder size while slowly reducing the cow size based upon what your market providing you.
Yeah.
And that way gives you
Yeah.
some of that assurance and
Yeah.
security of both,
Yeah.
keeping a foot on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the past too, I mean, I've been pretty married to the cows, We're trying to grow our cow herd, trying to grow a cow herd. And we were a little bit, like, we weren't very aggressive with them, I guess I should say. We had a longer calving period. We wouldn't
Oh,
call
yeah.
a cow necessarily if she had a big problem. We would just maybe wait until she didn't breed and then we would send her. I think this year I'm just going to get really strict. I'm going to do a 45
Oh, yeah.
day calving window. Anybody that has any problems is going to go. Anybody that doesn't breed back is going to go. And we're going to get more strict with our calling program.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we won't get rid of the cows totally, but we're going to hopefully have some really good cows rather than holding on to
Oh, yeah.
these stragglers. I don't think it's doing us any good.
And we have a pretty good, we've went from having a lot of calving issues to almost none. And so that's already been so much better on
Oh,
the side
yeah.
of pro cows. We constantly have this pro and con cows
Oh, yes.
discussion. And on the pro cows, our cows are calving. We're not touching them. We don't do anything. They're just doing their thing.
Knock on wood.
Right. As we talk in their
Yeah.
now. And we've worked them hard, in my view, because of growing up with a conventional cow herd where they didn't really do a lot of walk in and move in.
Oh, yeah.
We're working them really hard, and they've been through a lot. And I feel like they're the ones that are doing really well are doing really well. Obviously, you're going to have the stragglers that we do need to cull and make into, which is another thing in our retail store. We're trying to do some brats and some processed meats and some value added products. So we're hoping that those cull cows will do that for us for the summer grilling season.
Yeah, which obviously
yeah.
doesn't make calling a cow burn so much. There's some years where you can
Right.
get a good call cow market, but some years you can't. So if we're able to add some value to them, let's call her, make some money on her.
Oh, yeah. One last question on the cows before we jump back to the pork for just a moment. What breed of cattle are you all using? Do you have a preference?
I'm a little partial to Red Angus, but if you look at our herd, we've got brown, black, white. We've got all kinds of things. But we do have a Red Angus bull. We've had a Red Angus bull for 3 years now. So it's definitely becoming more and more red, for sure.
Yes.
Up until the last 2 or 3 years, we really haven't had a preference. But back in 2013, we bought a group of Red Angus, and we still have 90% of those cows.
Oh, nice.
And they perform really well. And so it just sold me on the Red Angus.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Same here. I don't see myself or see our production going to more of the grass-fed breeds. I think we definitely prefer more.
Well, Red Angus.
On your pastured pork, are you bringing in feeders and just growing them out?
Yep. Yeah, we haven't got any sows yet. We're not really set up to have pigs in the winter. It's our biggest issue.
Right.
And we're in an area where it really hasn't been an issue finding feeder pigs. And, some years they're fairly reasonable. So.
And also our house, another interesting nuance is our house is down the road from the farm. So I just feel like sows I feel like if if our house was actually on the farm, we would be more open to getting things like that.
Oh, yeah.
But we're down the road, so we can't really always have our eyes on them.
I know, just speaking of that a little bit, I grew up my mom and dad's house 2 miles away from the dairy. And just that 2 miles is not that far, but it was far enough that we just didn't run down all the time. We grouped those trips, and if we have to, we'd run back and forth because it's not that big a deal. But just that little bit of distance makes a difference in your mindset and how you're managing and doing things.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's definitely pros and cons. I think to having the house a little ways from the farm, we get to turn it off a little bit more than we
Oh,
would
yeah.
if it was out outside our window. And for a family, young family, it's nice to be able to just talk about something else for a minute.
Oh, yes.
But definitely the cons are like when I'm at home with the girls, I can't just go outside and we can go see the cows. We have to load up into the car and head down
Oh,
there.
yes.
And so that's frustrating, especially, and with the retail store, we've had to make some pretty boundaries with our hours so that these are our hours and we're not accepting just random walk-ins because we're just not sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
we're sometimes not there. So that's the cons on that.
One thing you all had mentioned early on that when those first cows, Brooks, you direct marketed them to the consumer.
Yes.
COVID was a big mind shift for a lot of people that people started looking for locally sourced meats. But this was prior to that. How did you develop and cultivate that market?
I guess to be honest with you, my grandfather owned a business, and most of it, maybe half to 75%, went to his business for a benefit that the employees got.
Oh, very nice.
But we grew on that. Obviously, we got a little bit of our name out. Our shop teacher bought it. It was the first steer that I sold was to him. People just started to hearing about us a little bit. Family, friends.
Oh, yeah.
So we had
Hitty sales there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh,
But my
yeah.
first sale was definitely
First sale.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the meat was any good, but we sold, and it just slowly grew. It was word of mouth for sure.
Oh, yeah.
There was people back then that did value where their meat came from.
Right. Yeah. But let's transition to the overgrazing section. And the overgrazing section, we take a little bit deeper dive into something about your operation. And I just had a conversation the other day. Maybe it should be called severe grazing. We're taking a deep dive for just a little while, and then we're moving on from it. Today, we're going to talk about using social media to sell beef. But let's just talk about that in general. You've already mentioned how you started that market. How did you grow that market and continue to expand it?
I'll take the reins on this one. When obviously he's doing the production side of things, and obviously I'm helping as well, but my thing has been social media, and it started with just like cute pictures of the cows, and people were, oh, you guys are out there, huh? And doing things. And that was back in 2012. So we've been posting for 12 years or so. And so just it started out with just a few pictures here and there of the cows. And then obviously, the trends of social media have definitely grown. Instagram, TikTok, all those things are now a very big deal. So with starting that, I don't think we really sold meat out of from the social media until probably 2019, 2018. But then obviously, like you said, 2020, everybody was just bored and on social media too. So it definitely grew in that sense. And when we got an Instagram and really started making videos and trying to get a little bit more intentional with our marketing, I always say to people that ask, I'm always getting people that are like, oh, I see you on social media. And sometimes it feels like a self-indulgent project, but in a lot of ways, it's part of the business. It's marketing.
Oh, yeah.
And so just getting more intentional and coming up with what's our mission, it's helped us get an avenue, and then trying to show people what we're doing and how our practices have changed, and trying to get people to buy in to the beauty of it and to the romanticized version of this regenerative agriculture thing, and which it's beautiful to see. So we're always trying to capture that. And then I guess as far as today, we have an Instagram and a Facebook, and those two are definitely different in a lot of ways. Instagram is a lot of videos. It's turned into a video platform. I always say, though, Instagram is a large audience. So, like, when you're posting videos, you're getting a lot of views, but maybe they're not your customers. So we don't really want to be, like, influencers or social media famous or anything. So we don't necessarily try that hard in those things, but Facebook is much more our customers and our communication with our customers. It's much more community based. So the things we post, we get tons of comments on there from people that are actually buying our meat and want to stay in the loop. And then we're looking into starting to utilize some like individual groups on Facebook for like our customers so they can ask questions and communicate with us. And I think that, and we're starting to work with Barn to Door, which they're setting up our website and our online store right now. And then that will be a lot of streamlining and much more accessible for people to literally take the Instagram or the Facebook post or whatever and be able to click right into our online store. I'm heading that project to try to make everything just a lot more streamlined and have everything be a consistent branding. You want to have your page and your profile be consistent with what you're doing and be simple and make sense. In our area, we're the first people to really do this, and so it's a whole new idea. The beauty of it really helps, but also trying to get the actual content to them and educate them a little bit on soil health and why it's important for their health and our health and the soil health. And so it's been a building project.
I would say definitely too. It's the most popular things seem to be like when we're out there with our kids and our families involved, versus us just showing a picture of a cow eating some grass. People seem to really enjoy seeing our kids out there, and maybe that's what's selling our story versus our practices.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing about our social media is just trying to sell the story, and then there's been to get ahead of the algorithm. That's what Barn to Door promises as well. Like the algorithm is going to be in favor of someone that has consistent branding, is posting all the time. I find that I have more interactions with people if I post from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. More people are seeing it I post it from at like noon or so. Just trying to find it's quite an art. It's not just like here's a selfie of me and like we'll post it. I'm trying to be really intentional about everything that we post and have a mission to it. Our new thing is like buy your meat from a farmer. It's just like simple. When you go to the store, you're not seeing the farmer, you're not seeing the impact of what your dollar is doing. So just doing those kinds of things. And then we see a lot of interactions with our kids on there or just faces in general. Yeah.
I think you mentioned this, but you have a Facebook group. You have a Facebook page for the farm, and then you've recently started a group as well.
We haven't yet. We're looking into that. Okay. For our specific customers. With the retail store, a lot of people have a lot of questions, and the retail store was only 2 weeks ago. We're thinking about trying that out, and then it'll be a spot for us to be able to troubleshoot any issues with the online store because that's kind of coming up too.
So you're sharing stuff through your Facebook page. You're sharing stuff through Instagram. Are you doing any lives, or are you doing all videos or photos content?
So no lives yet. I know with my flower business, I do a lot of lives when I'm making bouquets. Yeah. So I do a lot of social media for my flower business as well. But I think I do a lot of stories, so on Instagram, and the lives just haven't had a lot of performance. There's just not a lot of people on there. I think you have to do a lot in the evening, and there's nothing. Yeah. Nobody wants to see us like giving our kids dinner and stories. We do lots of stories about what we're currently doing, people like that, and then I do a lot of little questions. So I'll ask a question or something, and then I'll answer those questions. And then on Facebook, all the stories that you do on Instagram go right to Facebook so everyone can see those too. And we get a lot of interactions with my stories about what we are doing live in that exact moment. Oh, yeah.
In addition to your Instagram and Facebook, do you also do email marketing?
Yes, so that is the thing that we're now moving towards. So now that I feel like we have established our social media presence, I obviously want to take all those things and streamline them into another place so that we can have one-on-one conversations with these people. And so that's another thing that Barn to Door is going to help us with, is capturing emails. I have tried to reach out and have people put their emails in, but that is not always successful. Barn to Door, when we make a sale, will capture the email for us, put it on a customer, like we'll create a customer list, and then we'll be able to put out our email newsletters. I've even said I would like to have a mail newsletter because I get so many emails too. There's just so much information being inundated at all times on social media, on your email. So just now the next challenge is trying to get them to put their information in so that we can have direct conversations with them and give them more like customized information, more in-depth information. You have to have the people that care about where their food comes from and care about the mission, which comes with caring about the environment, which specific person. So getting those people on a list is the next thing that we're working with Barn to Door on.
Oh, very good. Do you see you expanding beyond Instagram and Facebook, or is that where you plan to maintain your social presence?
Yeah, we're maintaining our social presence there. I can't do TikTok. I'm
YouTube.
just, or it's just, I'm
Brooks
too old
can't
for that.
dance?
And
What?
no,
I probably could.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
yeah. I think obviously we've went down the road of thinking about TikTok, but it is such a broad audience too. Like with a retail spot that is local in a small community, a large audience just really isn't in our goals, because just not, you have to think about who's watching it, but then who's a customer. That's our thing. You have to have some boundaries with social media. When we first started, I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. We could do a YouTube video, and then I was like, okay, let's focus on our actual customers and just entertain them and gain new customers in our area. We don't need somebody from California watching our TikTok. You know, if they're gonna buy meat, then great, but they're probably not. So we tried to create some boundaries with social media and say, these are our customers. Let's communicate with them and try to gain more customers in our local area, and stick to Instagram and Facebook. And obviously I think our number one goal, like you said, is just get email marketing going. And we've done a little bit of text message marketing as well, because I think that's like a convenient way for people to get information. So just, sticking to those.
With your social media marketing as well as your email, are you working with kind of a calendar and planning it out a month at a time or a week, or are you just trying to identify those moments as you go through and say, oh, this is a moment I should share?
Yeah, ideally, I wish I could sit here and say I had a schedule and everything, but no, it's an authentic posting situation. We see moments, I videotape them. I try not to also have my phone out constantly when I'm out there, just for well-being reasons. I like to keep my boundaries with it and not just be constantly videotaping everything, because I have kids and we want to also enjoy our life on the farm. But obviously, like, we're moving cattle, we're out in nature, and maybe if I see something, it doesn't take much for me to grab my phone and just start recording. And then maybe at the end of the week, I'll go back and look at all my recordings, and then I can make a quick reel with all the videos spliced together. And making videos is a whole art too, just having high quality video and high quality sounds and music and stuff, trending audios. So I try to just stay up to date as much as I can with all that, but also keeping boundaries with social media so that I can also enjoy my real life.
So very true. And I know from the podcast and what we do on social media, that takes so much more time than you really think it's going to. You think, oh, it's just a post, it won't take too much time. But it takes time to get the wording right, get it out there, and then if you're getting engagement off of that, it takes time to reply to those people and make sure the conversation's going in a productive route.
For sure. And I think with having kids, it's a balance, because I don't want to be on my phone constantly when I have the kids. But they go to daycare part-time a couple times a week. And so then I'll maybe record some things. And then maybe when I have a daycare day, I have an office day, I'll sit down and I'll really hit it hard, and just trying to like schedule out that time to be completely present with whatever I'm doing. That's been the balance.
Very good. Wonderful conversation thus far, Brooks and Abby. But it's time we transition to our famous 4 questions. Our famous 4 questions are sponsored by King Co. Farm Fence Supplies. Ken Cove Farm Fence is a proud supporter of the Grazing Grass podcast and grazers everywhere. At Ken Cove Farm Fence, they believe there's true value within the community of grazers and land stewards. The results that follow proper management and monitoring can change the very world around us. That's why Ken Cove is dedicated to providing an ever-expanding line of grazing products to make your chores easier and your land more abundant. Whether you're growing your own food on the homestead or grazing on thousands of acres, Ken Cove has everything you need to do it well. From reels to tumblewheels, polytwine to electric nets, water valves to water troughs, you'll find what you're looking for at Ken Cove. They carry brands like Speedrite, O'Brien's, Kiwi Tech, Strainrite, Job, and more. Ken Cove is proud to be part of your regenerative journey. Call them today or visit kencove.com, and be sure to follow them on social media and subscribe to the Ken Cove YouTube channel at Ken Cove Farm Fence for helpful how-to videos and new product releases. They're the same 4 questions we ask of all of our guests. Our very first question: what is your favorite grazing grass-related book or resource?
So I would say my favorite resource would be Understanding Ag, their website, their newsletters. You're getting one, I think it's a couple times a month, I guess I forget. And then also The Grass Farmer. That's my favorite thing to get in the mail. I'm always reading it every time we get it. And as far as a book goes, Jim Garrish's Kick the Hay Habit was definitely a big eye-opener for me. And I recently just read The Turnaround Story, or A Rancher Story by Dave Pratt. That's probably my favorite book. And that didn't have a lot to do with grazing necessarily. It was more financial, but it was a big eye-opener for me.
If you're not profitable, you're not going to be grazing too much. So I think it
Exactly,
qualifies.
Yeah, you can have the healthiest soil in the world, but if you're not making money, what good is it?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Abby, do you have some resources to share?
Brooks, mostly, yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go. That works.
Again,
that works.
I have 2 children, so
Yes.
reading a book is...
It's difficult,
Yeah.
No problem. I just didn't want to leave you out.
Thank you.
So our second question: what is your favorite tool for the farm?
UTV for sure. That allows us to move the cows wherever we want, put up fence. The kids can go in it. The whole family can go in it. We bought that in 2020, and before that, we were using my old Colorado, and it was a pain in the butt to try to move cows and put up fence. And
Oh, yeah.
so definitely the UTV. That's as my father-in-law says, it's his right-hand man.
Oh, yeah.
And he added a little attachment to it. What was it, last week, where we can drive right over the fence and it goes underneath the... Yeah, that's been life-changing.
I don't know why it took me so long to do that, but...
I've often thought, we have a UTV here. My parents do. I don't use it very much. But I've looked into buying a UTV or ATV. Stickers price scare. But I've thought, I get one, I've got to fix it so I can drive over it. It's just a hassle as I'm out there in the pickup.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Our third question: what would you tell someone just getting started?
Get in contact with somebody that's already doing it. For the first couple of years, I was on YouTube a lot. I didn't have contact with a lot of people. Since we got in contact with Gabe, we attended some grazing conferences. We've got in contact with other people that are doing it, and it's put us light years ahead, just knowing different people that are doing it. Go to a grazing conference, just whatever you can do. Surround yourself with people that are already doing it, that are like-minded.
And if you have a wife, keep an open form of communication with her and try to work together as much as possible. And yeah, like you said, just getting in communication with other people has really helped us for sure.
And attend a Soil Health Academy. If you're just familiar with soil health, attend it. It'll change your mindset instantly.
Not sponsored or anything.
Excellent advice there. And our last question: where can others find out more about you?
Instagram and Facebook, and we do have a website too. And I'm always open to people emailing me and calling me. I don't know everything, but I definitely love to chat about soil health and adaptive grazing.
Wonderful. Brooks and Abby, we really appreciate you coming on today and sharing.
No, thank you. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was really fun.
I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I know I did. Thank you for listening. And if you found something useful, please share it. Share it on your social media. Tell your friends. Get the word out about the podcast. Helps us grow. If you happen to be a grass farmer and you'd like to share about your journey, go to grazinggrass.com and click on Be Our Guest. Fill out the form and I'll be in touch. We appreciate your support by sharing our episodes and telling your friends about it. You can also support our show by buying our merch. We get a little bit back from that. Another way to support the show is by becoming a Grazing Grass Insider. Grazing Grass Insiders enjoy bonus content, monthly Zooms, and discounts. You can visit the website, grazinggrass.com, click on support, and they'll have the links there. Also, if you haven't left us a review, please do. It really helps us as people are searching for podcasts. And I was just checking them, and we do not have very many reviews for 2024. So if you haven't left us a review, please do. Until next time, keep on grazing grass.